let's cultivate our motivation. And again, come back to the amazing fortune we have at having a precious human life and the opportunity to listen to the Dharma and practice it. And although we have difficulties in our life and challenges to meet, still, we're so fortunate, and going through whatever difficulties and challenges we have is so worthwhile. Just to have this opportunity and to do what we're able to do now. So we don't get proud or arrogant because we have a precious human life, but realizing that our opportunity depends on the kindness of all living beings, then we feel a sense of wanting to repay that kindness through our study and practice, transforming ourselves into suitable Dharma vessels, and eventually beings on the path, so that we can lead others on the path as well. So with that kind of perspective and the optimism that it brings, then let's listen to and discuss the teachings. When I first met the Dharma, Lama Yeshe had us do a lot of Lamrim meditation, especially on precious human life. We did a Lamrim retreat, and every day we were meditating on precious human life. I thought it was such a boring meditation. It was like, yeah, okay, I'm not a hell being, I'm not a pet, I'm not an animal, big deal, Okay, I have my senses intact. Okay, I'm born in it. Yeah. It's like nothing really hit me about it. And it's interesting how as time goes on, then the meaning of that meditation really comes to life. And it's like, oh my goodness, how did I ever create the cause for this opportunity? It just seems quite miraculous. And then also the opportunity itself, the capabilities and abilities we have. So it's interesting just to see how the mind changes from, to, wow, this really means something. The meditation topic's the same, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just the mind that goes, oh, yeah. Oh, by the way, for those of you who were in Long Beach, the prayers that His Holiness did at the beginning of the 2 days are the exact same ones with the homage to the Buddha and so on that we do here. Yeah, except they were done in Tibet, but same prayers. Okay, so we'll continue. We finished 33, right? And so we're starting 34. So Chandra Goman says, scorning the master and relying upon the letter. And here it says, despising the spiritual master or the meaning of the teachings and relying instead on their mere words. That is, if a teacher does not express him or herself well, not trying to understand the meaning of what he or she says, but criticizing. Okay, so Dakpa Rinpoche says, the second misdeed that is a deterioration of the causes of wisdom is bad behavior towards the person from whom we hear the teachings. In its first form, it is intention. So it has kind of two aspects to it. So in the first, it is intentionally scorning the person who teaches us the Dharma and absolutely refusing to consider him or her our spiritual guide. It may also consist of disdaining him physically by not paying our respects to him or not serving him according to generally accepted custom. Okay, at the verbal level, it involves addressing him or her impolitely, making fun of him, speaking roughly, being critical, interrupting them, talking at the same time as them, and so on. Okay, so let's look just at the actions itself. Okay, so intentionally scorning the person who teaches us the Dharma and refusing to consider him or her our spiritual guide. So what's wrong with doing that? Yeah, no teacher, no Dharma. Yeah, and no Dharma, no awakening. Okay, so the thing is, if we just pick faults in the teacher and see negative qualities, then we're closing our mind to be able to learn from that person, because we say they're just, who are they? They don't know anything. Especially if we scorn them, and say they're stupid or they don't teach well or blah, blah, then we're closing our own mind towards learning. And so that becomes a hindrance to us on the path, because they may say exactly what the Buddha may say, but we don't take it seriously. Okay? So it's not because, we're naughty little children because we behaved impolitely. That's not the issue. The issue is when we behave impolitely, what does that do to our mind? Yeah. It's not like the teacher's going to go walk out, but what does that behavior do to our mind, and how does that create an obstacle for us? Okay. It may also consist of disdaining him physically by not paying our respects. Okay, so the teacher comes in, we just ignore it, or we don't bow before and after teachings, or we just completely ignore the teacher, or teachers, carrying something or doing some work, and we just say, I'm on my way to do my own thing, and, we don't offer help or anything like that. Okay, so by not paying our respects to him or not serving him according to generally accepted custom. So whatever, the custom is, I think in the place where we live, according to the culture where we live, we don't, observe that custom of showing respect and offering service to somebody who has an important role in our life. Yeah. And so again, the effect that has is, on the immediate level, is we don't listen to the teachings very carefully because this person doesn't know anything. And then karmically, it causes us not to meet teachers in the future, or to meet teachers and have, kind of rocky relationships with them because we're having a rocky mind and a rocky mouth right now. Okay, and so we can see all of that just creates problems for us. It's not something that damages the teacher. They just go on, but it really impairs us. Okay, at the verbal level, it involves addressing him impolitely. Okay, so, kind of shouting across the room, or any kind of, we know what being impolite means. Yeah, making fun of somebody, so teasing them, or, if they have some physical attribute that's funny, making fun of that, or making fun of how they speak. Speaking roughly, so being just generally obnoxious. being critical, pointing out faults, just seeing negativities in our teachers, interrupting them, so they're trying to give us some advice and we cut in and start with what somebody was talking about today, defending ourselves, you know. Teachers trying to give us some feedback or some instruction, and we say, but I did this because of this and that and the other thing, whatever it is, so that we don't look, you know, we're trying to preserve our reputation and not look stupid. But in doing that, we actually look very stupid. Don't we? You know? Yeah. I mean, do we really think our teacher is going to be impressed with, you know, well, you know, I didn't do this because of this, 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 this. You know, I mean, it's clearly like we're covering up for our lack of awareness and our laziness. Okay, interrupting him or her, so they're speaking and, you know, we cut in and take over the conversation. Talking at the same time, so again, teachers trying to speak and we just talk at the same time. Yeah, you were saying your family does that, so yeah, I was with some people this last week. It was interesting, you know, the mother and daughter. I mean, they would both talk at the same time. I didn't know who to listen to. Yeah, but especially when we're with our spiritual teacher, you know, to do that just isn't appropriate. You know, kind of just generally pointing out faults and not, you know, not being a very nice person. Okay, so to really take some care with that, because it's not good for our own mind. We are less likely to belittle a spiritual teacher who lives far away from us or whom we meet infrequently. It's true, isn't it? Yeah? Teacher who lives far away, somebody with many titles who sits on a big throne and, you know, oh, they're very holy, they're very good, this and that. We don't see them very often, so we're so respectful and we bow down and do you want this and do you want that? And we're so like, you know, we go to the opposite extreme of just being so, yeah, like this. Yeah, but then the teacher that we're with all the time, it's like, oh, can you pass me the ketchup and please do this for me and please do that for me. Okay, so yeah, so it's much easier, or much less likely to belittle a spiritual teacher that we don't see very often, and much easier to respect that teacher because we don't see them very often, and we only see them in Dharma situations when they're sitting on a throne and there's 1,000 people and, you know, and things are like that. We don't see them in all sorts of other human, real life situations. On the other hand, when we see our teacher very often, perhaps even daily, we must be constantly on our guard, for we can easily forget whom we are dealing with. If we are not careful, we may begin treating him or her as our peer and not as a spiritual mentor. This is very easy, you know. It's like we work together with our teachers. We see them every day. They're just another person around here, and yeah, treat them like a friend. This would result in behavior that would be inappropriate for a student towards his or her spiritual guide. We must always try to remember whom we are addressing and make sure to be polite and respectful, rising when our teacher enters the room, for example, and speaking courteously when we have something to say. So the idea isn't that we're on our best behavior when we're with our teacher, and then as soon as the teacher leaves, we just go back into our old way. I've seen many people do this, you know, when they're with the teacher, they are the epitome of, you know, being so humble. And what's the word called, you know, where you're always asking? Pious and obsequious, and, you know, like that. And then as soon as the teacher is gone, it's like, do this, do that, go here, go there, you know, bossing everybody around. So we don't want to be like that. The idea is we practice being polite and mindful of our behavior with our teacher so that we get in the habit of being like that, and then we carry that over to all the other sentient beings that we deal with. Okay? We don't make a big line between, okay, our teacher, I look like a goody two-shoes, and everybody else, I just trample on. But it's a way of training our mind and practicing. And many of you, those of you who were in Portland, you saw how Yangtze Rinpoche treated all the other people. Yeah? Now, he's just as knowledgeable and, was a recognized incarnate and so on. But he was so kind and really humble, genuinely humble, to all the other speakers there. Yeah? So there you see that kind of example. None of the other people were even his teachers, but just by developing a humble, behavior towards the teacher, then carrying that over to other people. And it made such a good impression, doesn't it? There's a teaching just by when we observe how somebody acts. Jason Kappa said in his short Lamrim, The Foundation of All Good Qualities, that's in the Blue Prayer Book, the kind spiritual masters are the foundation of all good qualities. This is true for everybody. All our virtue develops with the blessings and support of our spiritual teachers. Without them, it would be very difficult for us to progress on the spiritual path. The corollary of this is the person who correctly relies on a spiritual guide will easily advance. Okay? So it's, that first part in the Lamrim is setting up a good relationship with our spiritual mentor, because that benefits us. We listen to the teachings better, we take things more seriously, we feel supported in our practice, we learn to overcome our critical, judgmental mind. Yeah? And then these are all good qualities we train ourselves with in relationship to our teacher. And that is easier because we've already checked the teacher out and determined that they have some good qualities. And so it becomes easier to develop our good qualities towards them because we've already decided they're worthy of, that kind of behavior. And then, having developed those good qualities, we can take them and behave that way with other people as well. People who aren't as nice to us or as helpful and so on. Okay? And so even when our teacher scolds us, it's really a practice in listening and taking to heart what they're saying, and yet at the same time not taking it personally so that we feel like, oh, I must be a terrible person, my teacher scolded me, or who does he think he's talking to? I didn't do that, and I'm getting accused unjustly. This is just like my parents blaming me for things my siblings did, and we just get into our old thing. One of my teachers, Khensa Rinpoche, he, with some of his disciples, he could be so wrathful. Yeah, really wrathful. And I saw, especially with one monk who translated for him, he would really be quite wrathful. But the monk really used it to practice, and he really used it to, just endure this and not, practice. For a long time he had a negative mind, but then he just realized, hey, that's no good, and this is somebody I really trust and have a lot of devotion for, and so let's not take it seriously, and and just keep on going. So it was quite interesting to see how this person changed. Not take it personally, yeah. But seriously in the sense of, I got criticized, this is terrible, this kind of thing. But, just, yeah, that's the way it is. Yeah. Yeah, I remember one time I was coming to visit, and the monk had picked me up at the station and taken me into the monastery. And Khenzo Rinpoche just called, bring her up here immediately. Why isn't she up here? And to the monk, and and it was in Tibetan. I didn't understand it, so he told me what was being said. And it was very clear he couldn't get me there any quicker than he had. Yeah. I mean, we were doing everything the fastest we could. And I wanted to go up there immediately to see. But, it was very interesting. And he just, kind of said, yeah, there it is. I don't need to get disturbed by it. Huh? In 1954, when I was still living in Dakpo Shedrupling Monastery in Tibet, I attended teachings given by His Holiness the Dalai Lama on the Lines of Experience, which is a text by J. Rinpoche, in his summer palace, Norbalinka. During the lectures, when His Holiness was elaborating on the correct manner of relying on a spiritual teacher, I clearly remember him saying, "There is not much risk in relying on great masters who sit on high thrones. The danger lies in our relationships with the spiritual teachers whom we live with or from whom we receive teachings regularly." And I also have heard His Holiness say this many, many times. Yeah, and it's true, isn't it? Don't you think? Okay, the second aspect of this misdeed is described as relying on the letter, which means attributing greater importance to the form of the teacher's explanation than to the content. This means scrutinizing the master's words and trying to find weak spots in the style, and so on, without paying attention to the meaning elucidated. Okay, so we get our critical, judgmental mind revved up, and they're explaining this and they said that and that doesn't make sense and this is illogical, and they tried to be funny but it wasn't a very funny joke, and or the teaching's too long or it's too boring, or they're not explaining it very clearly, or just this general critical mind that's not really trying to understand the content of the teaching and the meaning of the teaching, but just likes to pick faults. Yeah. So that's easy to do too, isn't it? Especially if we like to be entertained during teachings. If we go to, a teacher who tells lots of jokes, oh, we think such a good teaching. We go to a teacher who reads out of the text and, gives us the transmission. We say, oh, so boring. Yeah. But, are we really getting any difference in the Dharma? No, or especially when we hear the text, maybe, we're getting the same words J. Rinpoche or the Buddha taught, so no, why are we criticizing? Oh, they just read from the book. Well, whose book is it? Yeah, and what's wrong with reading from the book written by a great master? Okay. Any questions about this one before we go on to the next? Okay. Then we come to a new subsection here. That was all under the far-reaching wisdom, how to develop far-reaching wisdom. So you can tell that this one with the teacher comes under far-reaching wisdom, because if we, are criticizing the teacher and being disrespectful and so on, we're going to find it very difficult to gain any wisdom. Okay, so now we come to a different section, which is called the 12 misdeeds contrary to the ethical conduct of helping others. So remember, there were 3 types of ethical conduct: restraint from non-virtue, creating virtue, and then the ethical conduct of benefiting others. So, I have the hiccups. This section has 2 parts. The first relates to general objects to be helped, and the second to specific ones. In the first category, there are misdeeds. There are misdeeds that involve not accomplishing what is good for others, and misdeeds that consist of not eliminating what harms them. Okay? So there's two sections to this. There's general objects and then specific objects, and within general objects, meaning the recipient of who we could be benefiting, is not accomplishing what's good for them and then failing to eliminate what harms them. Okay, so the first section of that, misdeeds related to general objects to be helped and not accomplishing what is good for them. So here is precept 35, where Chandragoman says, not going to help when it is needed. The misdeed may be associated, this one not going to help when it is needed, may be associated with afflictions or dissociated from them. As before, in the first case, the failure to go to help someone is motivated by either animosity or anger, so we don't go help, or in the second, it is due to sloth or laziness. I don't feel like it, I don't have time. Okay, the 8 occasions on which not providing assistance becomes a misdeed are as follows. So this is like really practical material here, to see what are these 8 situations in which if we don't provide help when we're capable of it, we commit a downfall. Okay, so one is deliberating an action. So here, a person has a project, is wavering between several possibilities, and asks us to help make the best choice regarding what to do or not. In this case, it is a question of helping the person think about the matter thoroughly so that he or she can find the answer. It is a very practical point, as we regularly meet people who ask for our opinions about a certain course of action. Okay, so somebody's thinking about something, should I do this, should I do that? And they want to talk to us about it and ask for our advice. Yeah, but instead, either out of animosity, it's like, oh, this person is such a nudnik, came out, such a pest. That's what nudnik means, such a pest. I don't want to help, so it's animosity or anger. Or laziness, which is, just I have something more important to do, like watch TV. Yeah. Okay, so here, the person wants to talk over a situation. Now the thing comes, what is really skillful to do when a person asks our advice? And this comes in the next section too. Do we tell them what to do? Yeah, do we ask them questions? Do we tell them our experience? There's many ways to approach it. And I think a lot of this depends on our relationship with the other person, and a lot of it depends on the culture. Yeah, you'll find, it really sticks out in my mind. Many of you saw the film about Geshe Lama Kunchok's life and his incarnation, and it was made by his disciple, Tenzin Zopa. And Tenzin Zopa said, Geshe-la told me to do something and I did it. And it was just very simple, and that was Tenzin Zopa's personality, and so Geshe Lama Kunchok would tell him to do things and he didn't question it, he just did it. And that worked in that kind of situation for both of their personalities. You meet some people and they may ask you, what should I do? And then if you tell them, then if it doesn't work out according to their expectations, they get mad at you. Yeah. Or there's some people who don't want to really think for themselves and they want instead for somebody else to make their life decisions, which isn't very healthy. And so, in certain cultures, maybe in a Tibetan culture, that kind of, telling somebody what to do just is part of the culture. There's, the way people relate to each other is is different. But here it's quite different, isn't it? And lots of times people don't want to be told what to do. They want an opportunity to discuss the situation. So we should discuss it with them. Yeah. Sometimes they want us to tell them what to do, but I don't think that's always so good. Yeah, even sometimes you can see it very clearly. Because it's in some ways, it's like the other person has to reach the conclusion themselves. But with some people, you have that kind of relationship, and there's that kind of trust, and you can say, do this or don't do that, and they really trust you, and they'll listen, and it works out well. Then other people, they ask you for advice, but if you give the advice, they get mad at you because they think you're bossing them around and controlling them, even though they were the ones who asked you for advice. Okay, so you really have to see what the situation is. Then you also have to see, what is it, it's appropriate when somebody asks you for advice. I remember one time I was in Malaysia, and one woman came to see me, and she said, I've been going out with this guy for a while, and should I marry him? And I said, well, what do you want to do? And she said, I don't know. Lama so-and-so came 2 years ago and said, it would be good to marry him. But then last year, Lama this and that came and said, maybe it wasn't so good. And so now I'm really wondering what you think, should I marry this guy or not? I was not going to get involved in that one. Yeah? And I mean, my own personal opinion was, I don't think it's appropriate for spiritual teachers to tell somebody who to marry. It seems like that's their business. But maybe in a different culture, a different situation, people do that, but I won't go near it. I more often tell people, they call me and say, well, somebody called me actually once, this was many years ago, and said, I'm getting married to this person, but I have some doubts about it, and told me the doubts. And I said, those doubts kind of sound serious. You should really listen and think about it. And he said, well, the wedding's already planned, and married the person, later divorced them. Okay? Yeah. So, so you just have to see what the situation is. Sometimes what I like doing at the Abbey is, when I get different emails or see different situations, to bring it to the community and have us all brainstorm. Because we learn a lot for our own practice about how do we help somebody address a certain problem that they're having that they write to us about. Okay, then the second of the 8 occasions is called settling questions. This is the follow-up of the preceding situation. The person has now reached the point where he has to make a decision, and he is finding it difficult. When he asks for our assistance, if necessary, we may make the decision for him. In the first case, we help the person to reflect on the issue. In the second, we help him decide upon it. Okay? So again, see what the situation is in the culture, and see what your relationship is with the person, whether you give them advice, do this or that, or whether you just ask questions to them to get them to think, or whether you refer them to go see somebody else. Maybe, we got an email the other day, and Venerable Samten looked at it, and I looked at it, and we thought Venerable Jigme would be the best person to respond to it, because she has more skill in that kind of area. So sometimes, the best way to respond is to refer the person to somebody else. Okay, then.
If you were to do the second thing, which was to take the decision for him, it would be helpful to set the parameters that this is my best from what you said, but to really be clear that this is not to hold the whole basket.
Right. And I mean, that's why I don't feel good making the decision for somebody else, because in our culture, I think people need to learn how to think clearly and make good decisions themselves, because if somebody else makes it, then so often people turn around and blame that person if things don't go the way they want. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons, for example, why monastics have a precept about not matchmaking and carrying messages back and forth for a liaison, because if you matchmake and it's not a good marriage, then who do they blame? Okay, then the third occasion is traveling back and forth. When a traveler asks us for help, we should provide it. In ancient times, traveling in India or elsewhere was far more difficult and hazardous than it is today. There were, of course, no trains or planes, and people traveled mostly on foot, on horseback, or in carriages. They often would have to cross dangerous and uninhabited territories. Why is an uninhabited territory dangerous? I guess natural.
Yeah,
Animals and things like that. Yeah. Right, that's true, yeah. Okay, although today conditions have vastly improved, traveling still can be a traumatic experience. You have to sit in the airport for 24 hours, with 5,000 other people trying to get on the flight because a volcano's exploding or, something else happened. And when voyagers ask us for help, we should furnish it, showing the way, giving advice as to the best route to take, accompanying them to their destination, and so on. Now here too, it really depends on the culture. And I've heard many people say that in some cultures, when they go, I forget which cultures, some of you may know, that the people, if you ask them directions, they will accompany you there on the street and take you actually there. Americans will not, We say, you're standing there, go 4 blocks that way, turn right, then at the first stoplight, turn left, then after another 2 blocks, the road has a Y and you veer to the right, and then you turn left by the next following building, and you'll arrive there very easily. Yeah, but we won't take one step to go there, with the other person. But then in India, it's hilarious. People, even if they don't know where it is, they say, oh, it's down there, or go here or there. So you always have to, they don't want to disappoint you, so they point you somewhere. So you always have to keep asking for it, And you learn, when you travel for a while, you really learn how to tell who is giving you correct directions and who isn't, no matter what country you're in. Yeah. Just yesterday at the airport, it was confusing, and I asked one person, and I thought, no, that doesn't sound like the right direction to that terminal. And sure enough, it wasn't. So, I asked another person, and then it was confirmed, no, that wasn't the right way to the terminal. But, so you develop that. But anyway, when people are traveling, really trying to reach out and help them. And I think especially when we see people from other countries or people who don't know English, and are struggling to find their way or struggling to figure out how things work in this country, that we should, really reach out and help. Because I've been a traveler in other countries many times where I haven't known the language, and people have been so kind and so helpful, and I've been really, really grateful. So I think we should, definitely try and do that. Okay, then the fourth occasion is showing how to undertake a worthy enterprise. So this consists of helping others to do their job in general. For example, when we have the necessary skills, we will advise farmers on how to run their farms. In particular, we will show others how to fulfill the requirements of their profession in such a way that it involves the least negative activities possible. However, we will never assist people in activities that are clearly harmful, such as killing or stealing. In short, we will explain the different ways that people can accomplish what they have set out to do. So somebody has a project, they need advice how to do it, the computer's broken, they need help, fixing the computer, they're going to get a new computer, they have no ability to do it, they're trying to choose between Foswal and Rastra, and they don't have, they need some help in deciding, they're trying to figure out how to do a commercial kitchen and don't know what the requirements are. Show any kind of project where somebody needs some advice, and if we have the skills, then we help them and we give them the advice. Well, that doesn't mean we necessarily do everything for them, but we try and answer their questions and give them the knowledge that they need. Of course, if somebody's asking us for advice and we know that they're going to, lie on their taxes or embezzle some money or, blackmail somebody, then of course we don't help them do that kind of thing. Okay? And then 5 is protecting possessions. So the 5th way of giving assistance concerns the protection of property. This may involve giving financial advice or practical recommendations. We may propose possible ways of investing capital or refer someone to a bank or a financial counselor. Again, I think you have to be really careful with this. Because if somebody asks you how to invest some money and you give them some advice and then the market changes, okay? So you have to be very careful. On a smaller scale, knowing that people tend to keep cash in their homes, we may suggest that they put it in a bank instead. Okay, when we visit a home and we see that for lack of repairs it is getting damaged, we may advise the owner on the work that should be done on it. But we should be tactful, otherwise they take it as criticism. And we should be sensitive whether they have the money to do the repairs or not, because otherwise we may just make them feel bad. The general idea is to help others guard their belongings from theft, loss, or deterioration. Yeah, so if somebody is doing something that's not so wise to protect their belongings, you give them some advice. They're in India at the train station and they're not holding on to their luggage. Yeah, they don't have their hand on their luggage at all time. Then you say, it's really good, keep your hand on your luggage. Or even in American airports, I had a cousin who turned away once at the check-in counter and his computer was gone when he turned back. Yeah, so, you need to be careful. So, or if people aren't locking their doors when they should, or, things that giving people advice as to how to protect their possessions. Okay, then 6 is reconciling parted friends. Here we provide assistance to people in conflict with others. It may involve helping 2 friends reestablish a close relationship, serving as a mediator in a marital dispute, consoling a person who is embittered about a relationship, or anything else that helps people settle their differences. Okay, so people often approach us. We get many emails from people who are having difficulties in relationships and they ask us for advice. Yeah. So again, depending upon the culture of the person, your relationship with them and so on, then you get involved in one way or another. Regarding this, in terms of the one about marital dispute, then the question came up in Vinaya, well, we're not supposed to pass messages between men and women and create their liaison. So what about if they come to us when they're not getting along? Do we not get involved in that either? And Venerable Wuyid said, there they already have the liaison, so you're not creating it. And what you're trying to do is help them to have a happy family life. So you give them some advice that would, help help them to have a happy family life. Of course, nowadays it's really difficult, you know. Somebody is having marital problems, and do you tell them to try and work it out with the person, or do you tell them after a certain point to, you know, look, you've tried hard enough and now it's time to sign off, you know, and separate. It's really hard to know. And so in those kinds of things, I think, I'm dealing with something like that right now, actually. Somebody's been writing me for a while. And trying to, you know, ask questions and give the person, you know, some consolation so that they feel understood and they feel somebody's on their side and, you know, not the whole world is against them. And, you know, but at the same time, I mean, I say very often in the emails, talk to your counselor about this, you know, or talk to your counselor about that. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, these days, there's lots of divorce mediation and
Yeah.
free court outcomes, and maybe refer people to.
Yeah. Yeah, so some things, yeah, they have to both go. And sometimes people aren't sure. I get emails, you know, of, you know, shall I, you know, we haven't been getting along. How can we start to get along? But you can tell they haven't been getting along for a while, you know? So you're wondering if that person really wants to change enough to make the relationship work or not. So it's hard, you know. If they're already getting divorced, then it's much easier. You just refer them like to a mediator. But when they're trying to decide what to do, it can be very, very touchy, especially because the situation changes every conversation they have with their partner. They have a good conversation, then they have a bad one, then they have a good one, then they have a bad one. So it's quite difficult sometimes to know how to help them. Yeah.
There was a woman that wrote telling Venerable talk on the coordinator. She said the teachings and stuff, and she was going through this thing with her husband. And it was so interesting because she was using the Dharma to sort of justify ending the relationship. Oh, maybe my karma has ripened and it's finally done, and that for me as a practitioner, maybe the best thing for me is to finally say, you know, the karma's ripened, I've learned as much as I can from him, and it's time to go. What do you think?
Yeah.
Like, I can't really advise you, but you use the Dharma to justify resolving something that needs more work.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you're saying, like, when you get it, you got an email where somebody was saying, you know, oh, my karma with this person is done, and it'd be better for my practice to split up. So you're seeing somebody use the Dharma to justify splitting up when, you know, and you get the sense that they haven't really thought about the situation well enough, or really tried enough, or really come to peace or clarity even in their own mind. Yeah. And so then you may have to correct them on their Dharma understanding. You know, don't use, you know, you can't really say, oh, my karma with this person is done. You know. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. I do that lots of times. You say, you know, very, very often in marital situations, I feel, you know, it's much better that somebody goes to a family therapist than talks to me. But again, it depends on the culture. In Asian cultures, people are used to going to the monks and nuns for help. Yeah? Still there, I try and get them used to the idea of counselors, but often they're resistant to it. There's some kind of, it's becoming more socially acceptable now, thank goodness. But some people just feel like, oh, you know, I can't do that. That's bad if I, you know, it's shameful if I have to go to a counselor. Whereas in our culture, you know, people do it all the time. Yeah. But definitely when we're getting over our head, we should refer them. And definitely we should not get personally involved in this, you know. Yeah, I mean, I'm always really hesitant when, you know, they want me to talk to the spouse and then talk to them and talk to the spouse. And it's like, I'm not a couples therapist. I really can't do that. You know, if your spouse is a Buddhist, I'm happy to talk to them about how they're keeping the precepts. You know, that I could do. Yeah, if somebody's lying or cheating on their spouse, and the spouse, you know, the person who's doing that is a Buddhist, yeah, and has some faith and respect, then yes, I'm happy to talk to them about how to keep the precepts. But I don't want to get involved in all the psychological whatevers that are going on. I mean, I'm not qualified. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to share about divorce mediation, something that a lot of people don't know is well over half the couples that come, they don't know if they want to get apart. So
Yeah.
the maybe 300 ideas that, you know, in my job for many years, maybe half of those ended up actually, we call it mediating staying together. So it was like, what is, you know, they come in, they're not sure they want to get apart, they have kids, they have finances.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so most mediators now are trained to go the other direction and say, you know, what do you need to change to stay together?
Right.
And those were very satisfying times for me.
Yeah, okay.
Not just getting apart.
Yeah, so you're saying even people come in for divorce mediation now, because their relationships, they're so intertwined with each other that many mediators say, what needs to change for you to stay together? And then people start to brainstorm what can change, and they work on themselves, and then they often are able to stay together, which is really nice when that happens. Yeah, it's very nice. I think it's probably easier for the kids if the parents are able to work out their differences. Yeah. Somebody really just recently told me about something called collaborative divorce, where I think it might be something similar, where they're trying to, they're going to get divorced, but they really want to get over the anger and the hurt because they have kids and they want to learn to cooperate better for the benefit of the kids. So that can be very, very helpful too.
And they get very creative when they both have that intention, even though there's anger and things.
Mm-hmm.
They get very creative. One solution is the parents move out of the house and the kids stay, and the parents take turns going in and out.
Oh, that's an interesting one,
Never have to go.
to move here and there. Yes.
Really interesting what people come
Yeah. And that's actually more fair than the when the kids stay there and then the parents have to go in and out. Yeah.
have to deal with all that. I forgot my clothes.
Yeah. Right. And then the parents really think, you know, do I want to have that kind of life where I'm going in and out and here and there? And then they may think, oh, actually, you know, it's easier to live with my spouse and try and get along with them. You know? Yeah. Okay. But then often, sometimes the situation isn't a marital dispute. It's like you can see that, you know, friends often they have misunderstandings. Yeah. And so to help somebody look at that kind of situation so that they don't just feel so hurt by one small comment their friend made that they probably misunderstood to start with, that they abandon the whole friendship. So really trying to reconcile people as much as we can. And even if it's not a case of people being really close and then splitting up, but just when we hear one person speaking badly about another person, to try and help that person have a more positive attitude and try and help them to not be so judgmental and to look at the situation in a variety of ways so that hopefully they can, you know, get along with somebody. Because that is very helpful in situations where you're working together with people, yeah, at a job or something. Okay, then 7 is helping organize commemorations. So in this case, we participate in preparing and running celebrations or anniversaries that occur at fixed intervals, which often involve a considerable amount of work, like an autumn celebration at the Abbey, or you know, organizing teachings for His Holiness. That's not a regular anniversary, but Here it's talking more about anniversaries of things. For these, we may help do various tasks, shopping or cooking, helping to welcome guests at a dinner, and so on. Okay? And 8 is helping in festive occasions. The assistance that we are to provide in this case is similar to that described in the previous section, except that the event that we help to prepare is an occasional one. So, for example, hosting His Holiness. Yeah. We may assist in organizing the celebration by making appointments, contacting people, and so on, as well as in the ways mentioned above. Yeah?
Do those last two refer to more like religious activities? Like anniversaries, you know how they celebrate the
Anniversary of different bodhisattvas and so on. It's not specifying here whether it's religious activities or not. It would depend if you're a lay person or a monastic. If you're a monastic, it's not so appropriate for you to help organize, let's say, a wedding celebration or a wedding anniversary or a birthday party or something like that. But it would be quite appropriate to help organize a celebration for somebody getting their geshe degree, or when we have ordinations here, and we invite many guests, then to help organize that. Okay. So again, it's you're going to look here and see what kind of activity is it, what other things do you have on your plate, are there other people who could help instead of you helping? So it doesn't mean that every time somebody comes and says, I want to have a birthday party, that you have to drop everything you're doing and go off and buy balloons. Okay? Okay. Any questions so far? We'll finish the rest of this precept next time. But no? Okay. So that's going over 8 situations in which we should be really mindful and try and help if we're capable of. And next time we'll get into things where there's exceptions and so on. Yeah?
I did have a question from last time.
Okay.
About a different precept.
Okay, that's fine.
And it involves the sort of the precepts about treaties and non-Buddhist topics.
Mm-hmm.
Or, so if you're studying a topic that's related to Buddhism,
Mm-hmm.
like say non-harmony,
Mm-hmm.
but you're looking at non-Buddhist scriptures or
Mm-hmm.
non-Buddhist sources,
Mm-hmm.
is that considered like breaking some precepts?
Oh, okay. So,
You're trying to, even though you're trying to sort of deepen your understanding of the Dharma?
right, okay. So it's a Buddhist topic like nonviolence and non-harming, but you're reading texts by, let's say, conflict mediators or Mahatma Gandhi or, other non-Buddhists, but on that same topic because you're trying to deepen your understanding. Is that transgressing a precept? No, not at all. Because the transgression of the precepts is if you are spending all your time reading non-Buddhist things and completely ignore Buddhism, or if you're really beginning to, it's here, and this is applying not so much to like a Buddha, like something like non-harming, where you can really get some good information that is completely in accord with the Dharma. The precepts regarding this don't apply to that situation. It's more if you're reading a non-Buddhist text, let's say, that's talking about a creator, or that says things are predestined, or that asserts that things are truly existent, or a scientist that says there's only material in the universe, and that you're spending much more time reading that stuff than studying the Dharma. Or even if you're reading it for a good reason, because you need to learn so that you can, teach or refute those ideas, you begin to find your mind siding with those ideas. Maybe there is, a cosmic consciousness. Maybe there is only material in the universe. Then that becomes a transgression.
Yeah, it seems like some of those precepts, when I read them, because I haven't studied them very deeply, it seems like not allowed to read anything besides Buddhist scripture.
Oh, yeah, okay. So you're saying that sometimes it sounds like you're not allowed to read anything aside from Buddhist scriptures. That's not true. Yeah. You know, I mean, especially if you're a bodhisattva, they always say that, I have this echoing through my mind now that I'm learning about commercial kitchens and, how to get a contractor to make a bid and things like that. They say there's nothing that a bodhisattva won't learn to benefit sentient beings. So sometimes you may have to learn, practical skills or non-Buddhist topics or whatever. Yeah, and that's fine. So much depends on your motivation and how you're spending your time and why you're spending your time that way and so on. But yeah, of course, you can read non-Buddhist things. Huh?